Hello, it is wonderful to join you to present to you during Neurodiversity Pride Week. My name's Robby Coelho. I'm the founder of Dalza, and today I'll be presenting to you on how health tech can support neurodivergence. Just by way of background, as I mentioned, apart from being the founder and CEO of Dalza, I'm actually a technology lawyer by way of background and have been advising clients on issues such as technology law, data protection, privacy for over 25 years. And currently in practice, but I've also worked in some of the largest technology companies in the world. But apart from that, I was brought up as a neurodivergent child and also the parent of a neurodivergent child, and so have experienced these issues both as a child and as a parent, and from lived experience. As mentioned, um, I'm the father of a 12-year-old boy who is neurodivergent, has various learning challenges. You'll see today I'll talk about these words: learning challenges, learning disabilities, neurodivergence, and I use those terms interchangeably. Of course, everybody uses the language they're most comfortable with, and I hope you're comfortable with the language I use. I always intended to be respectful. But my son is part of the 20% of all children that are neurodivergent. Now, when it comes to talking about health tech and the like, there's no shortage of health tech products. Just when one looks at the apps that are available, just on a cursory search that I did, you can find over 4,000 apps that have been developed for ADHD support, more than 500 for autism, over 300 for dyslexia or for reading products and the like. But the key issue is that, and when considering neurodivergence, is that of those 20% of all children that I mentioned earlier, of people that are neurodivergent, it's now accepted that more than 50% of them, i.e., the majority of them, will have two or more co occurring challenges, normally more than two. And so, what does that mean? It means that it is now accepted that the majority of people that are neurodivergent will have a combination of challenges. So, a person that will have ADHD may also be autistic or have dyslexia. A person can be autistic and be hypertensional, or dyscalculic and hypertensional, and also, even if a person doesn't have a diagnosis, we would include things like executive processing challenges, math difficulties, reading difficulties, speech and hearing difficulties, sensory integration difficulties. And that's why it is uh, very difficult just to develop, when speaking of health tech, just to develop a product that is relevant for only ADHD or only autism or dyslexia. And one needs to take account of the fact that each of these individuals is truly unique. And so, when considering the challenge of supporting a neurodivergent child, not only do you have this really unique child, but it's now accepted that neurodivergent children will be supported by at least 50 professionals and other caregivers during childhood and adolescence. Um, and these are regularly changing all the time. And the difficulties for parents, we lack the capacity to advocate for a child, to manage multiple experts, and to keep up with our children's ever changing support needs. In addition, if one looks at some of the international research, it has been found that in over 75% of families which have a neurodivergent child, at least one of the parents either has had to reduce work or give up work completely to support the child. And that supporting the child has a material effect on both the stress and overwhelm for the parents and the quality of care and well-being, both of the parents and the child. In addition, when we think of supporting neurodivergent children, typically they receive their main support in an educational context. And so while they are often diagnosed in a therapeutic context or by a health professional, uh, the actual support and the majority of support they get is typically in a school environment, or we expect the school to be supporting the child. However, a child only spends 17% of the year in a schooling environment. The other 83%, what happens at home, in the social environment, in the health context, and the like, the child's background, fundamentally impact and are relevant to that child's growth, support, and development. Not only does what happens outside the school influence what happens inside the school, but equally, one is unable to properly support the child without taking a holistic view of the child. And one needs to remove this thinking that in supporting these children, it's either education or health or some other solution. We need to break down those barriers and look at it more holistically. In fact, we need to take a completely different approach. We need to place the unique child at the center and bring together everybody involved in that child's education, support, and caregiving, whether they're inside the school, in the health environment, or elsewhere. And in fact, the research supports this. There's clear research which says, for example, positive connections and working together between parents and teachers have been shown to materially improve not only the child's academic achievement and social competences and emotional well-being, but the children actually do better at school and at home. For the longest time, it's been recognized by the World Health Organization the importance of what's called interprofessional collaborative practice, where different professionals from different backgrounds work together with patients, families, carers, and the like to deliver the quality of care that is needed. And as the World Healthcare Professions Alliance has said, ICP requires effective communication, enhanced by team members talking and actively listening to each other and to the individual concerned and his or her significant others. This is important because when considering products and health tech products and the like, often we think of this as something happening to the individual or happening to the child. And what people often lose sight of is the importance of ensuring that, in this case, the child is included and a participant in their own care. And there's further research which shows the importance of team members and everybody working around the child collaboratively and communicating and the like. The research shows, many studies have shown that where a child is supported by coordinated multi-stakeholder teams, the child is likely to achieve 73% more likely to achieve meaningful educational gains than when they receive fragmented, uncoordinated support. As mentioned earlier, the importance of parent-teacher communication. And in fact, the research shows that where there is poor teacher-parent communication, this is a primary barrier to educational achievement. In addition, it's been shown, and this is an interesting insight, that the importance of consistency in this collaboration, the importance of consistency in making sure that when a child is receiving therapy from typically a healthcare professional, therapist, and the like, that this is applied in all their environments by people working with a child. And so the research shows that a child with SEN is unable to generalize the skills on their own. So they're unable on their own to take something learned in a therapeutic environment and on their own go and apply it in a classroom environment or outside the therapy room. And that it's important for in this case, for example, the teachers to be able to work with the therapist to ensure that what's being done in the one context is being carried through in the other. And that without the shared information, good therapy and what's happening in the healthcare environment doesn't carry across and find its way into more positive academic progress. And so all this research is there. The policies are there. The experts have recognized the importance of having proper collaboration, communication, and consistency with all of this. And in fact, I believe this presentation is being broadcast or shared as part of Neurodiversity Pride Week in Luxembourg. And so while everything I say applies outside of Luxembourg as well, when speaking about Luxembourg itself, the research is there by OEJQS, which is the standards organization the educational standards organization in Luxembourg, is they've found that inclusive education requires coordinated action between students and families and all the actors around the child. And it's not only a case of strengthening collaboration with schools, but also of overcoming institutional silos to ensure coherent, holistic, and a needs-based response from every student. So we're finding this coming through, this message of the importance of proper collaboration and communication and consistency coming through not only with the leading international organizations and experts and policies that apply both in the educational and professional environment more generally, but even at national and local levels. But the difficulty is that this is not happening. Despite the fact, when we speak of health tech, we've got all these apps out there, and that you have everybody with their own systems. And so we need to interrogate why there isn't this proper coordinated care. And as I'll show you, how health tech can address this. And so there's two sides to this problem based on our research, both information problems and what I call system problems. The first is that nobody has the same or whole child view or the whole view of the child, not even the parents. Everybody supporting the child is supporting the child based on bits and pieces that they see, and they are often making critical decisions based on the information they have, when there could be and often is other information that may be relevant to the care and support of the child that they're not aware of. And you'll note in my slide, I've emphasized the impact on girls because girls are disproportionately undiagnosed or misdiagnosed than boys. That's because they present differently. And it often requires a lot more interrogation and information to properly diagnose girls. And when you have the situation where nobody has the same view or the complete view, in my view, it has a particularly materially adverse effect on diagnosis of girls. There's also problems around the professionals not being able to properly coordinate and communicate with each other. The irony with really important legislation like the GDPR and privacy laws, the irony with it is that this has resulted in the professionals often being reluctant to communicate with each other and share information with each other because they are worried about compliance with privacy laws and whether they have necessary consents and approvals. There's also frustrations amongst the professionals and the like around accessing information. Everybody keeps different records. There's different people have different versions of records. And in addition, even though people have these IT systems and everybody has technology and arguably health tech, they're all working in silos, in systems that are ring-fenced from each other and often don't properly communicate with each other, and retain different different versions. In addition, because these systems are owned by the institution, whether it is a government body or school body or otherwise, or a professional, when a child leaves that organization or that school or that provider and goes to somebody else or another school, another provider, or even changes cities, whatever the case may be, the whole record stays behind and one has to start all over again, creating a whole new record, and there's no continuity. And all of this leads to misalignment, risks of misdiagnosis, because of the way institutions work. It is often really opaque to parents and really difficult for parents to be able to fully engage and properly advocate for their children. In fact, speaking of Luxembourg as well, and while I don't mean to pick on Luxembourg, you'll find these characteristics in many, many countries around the world. In the Child Ombudsman report in Luxembourg, published at the end of last year, their analysis revealed everything I've been speaking of about, for example, the lack of holistic and coordinated approaches between stakeholders like schools and the medical professionals, the need for proper and improved communication between schools, medicals, professionals, and the challenges of lack of coordination, and the importance of having proper communication to ensure success. The report showed the silos that exist, that people are repeating all the same information or repeating the same steps in the process. There's no sharing of information. Children aren't able to participate in their own journey and their own care. That all of this is having a fundamental impact on family life and stress on parents. That there's poor support of transitions when a child moves from one grade to another, one school to another. There's language barriers and the like. This is a report based on an environment which is highly resourced and, let's be honest, a fairly wealthy country, and still the state of affairs are dire. And so when one looks at this, one considers, well, what are the potential solutions? And that's something I did as a parent, completely frustrated by all of these things. And as I've mentioned, I've experienced all of these things in multiple countries. And so it's not unique to Luxembourg. But yet, out of complete frustration and looking at this, I decided, well, look, something needs to be done. And I didn't just say, well, let's just throw technology at the problem. I did a proper assessment, interviewing parents to see if they had the same experience. And what that revealed is, while everybody has a different journey, these challenges and these themes are common to almost everyone. And then also spent a lot of time thinking, well, look, this is not just a parent problem. There are other people working with the children. And so I spent a lot of time meeting with therapists and educators and the like. And what came through very clearly is that they all equally have the same frustrations. And what was coming through is that while everybody wanted the best for the child, all of these barriers that I've been mentioning have existed and prevented that from happening. And so looking at all of this, I identified how one can use technology and health tech to solve this. And that is what led to the birth or founding of Dalza. And what Dalza is effectively a solution that ensures that a child's information, their learning journey, and their support needs are always on hand, up to date, and managed in one place by everybody involved in the care of the child. Not only do we look at education, we look at the child's health and well-being, and we look at the child completely holistically. Now, what is key here is that not only do we create a centralized, pure, truly bespoke view of the whole child, so for the first time ever, While educators and the like have spoken about personalized education, they haven't been able to do it. We're now able to do it. But what is critical is that this is all controlled by the parent. And so we have created a solution to avoid the challenges I mentioned earlier, or to address the challenges I mentioned earlier, where everybody operates in silos. They're unable to communicate with each other because they are worried about privacy and do they have consent and approval of the parent. Is we've placed Dalza and we've created this tool and adopted a paradigm shift, thinking differently. We've adopted a paradigm shift by placing Dalza in the hands of the parent, where the parent controls it. And so Dalza, strictly speaking, isn't a school tool. It isn't a hospital tool or therapist tool. It's arguably a parent-owned and controlled platform where the parent can control everything. And that way, when a child moves schools or moves providers or caregivers change, you don't need to change anything because it stays with the family, and you're able to have that consistency happening and continuity through the child's care. Importantly, as I'll illustrate, we've built in permissions so the parent is able to control everything that happens on the platform and who can see what they can do with it. And you're able to set individual permissions for everybody on the team. We've also ensured that in Dalza, one is able to have daily and ongoing communication, collaboration, and tracking. And this happens consistently and seamlessly. And so what we're able to do is we're able, by bringing everybody together within the parenting control, we're able to drop the silos. And this way, when a child has caregivers inside the school, outside the school, in a hospital, outside the hospital, you're able to break down those barriers and everybody's able to communicate with each other. You no longer have these siloed systems where only people inside the system or who have access to the system are able to communicate or able to share information or get information. We break that all down. And importantly, taking a holistic view, one is able to take a completely holistic, real-time, and ensure that there's continuous 360-degree support. Importantly, what it also means is that with this holistic view, the right person supporting the child is able to make the decisions, as opposed to relying, for example, on a teacher to assess what the impact is of new medication. So let's use that example. Let's say a child, which is common, starts taking new medication, perhaps because they're not concentrating as well at school, or the behavior isn't what it should be, and medication is prescribed. Historically, what used to happen is a child would be given new medication, and then you would wait and rely on feedback from the school. Say, okay, has it improved or hasn't it? When a person was not necessarily also taking account of, okay, so maybe it's improved at school, but what is the impact on the child's diet? What is the impact on the child's sleep? What is the impact on the child's mood? And so forth. And now, so instead of making a decision based purely on one data point, for instance, what the impact of it being a school, one is able to take a completely holistic view, both inside the school, outside the school, what the doctors are seeing, even based on feedback from the child, and properly understand what the impact is. And this is the benefit of using health tech and designing health tech to address the specific problems rather than generic problems. And so everything we have created in Dalza, if you think back to the issues that are raised at the start of this, the inability for people to communicate, to collaborate, the fact that nobody has the same view of the child, that parents aren't able to actively participate, that there's no continuous records and so forth. That is the power of health tech, because we're now able to address that with the technology available to us. In addition, we're able to go further, and we're able to, particularly around neurodivergence, and this is particularly relevant when there are so many different profiles for children and individuals who are neurodivergent, and so many types of neurodivergences. We're also able, through technology and through health tech, to make available bespoke resources to parents, to teachers, and to other professionals to support that particular individual. Now, one of the key things when developing a health tech product, even more so when you're dealing with information of children, is the issue of privacy and security. And that has formed the bedrock of what we have built in Dalza. From my perspective, my child was the first child on this platform. And so I have a personal vested interest in making sure that we are focusing on issues like privacy, data protection, security, and regulatory compliance. And that's exactly what we do. You'll see that is like the base of everything, as mentioned. We also, tied to that, built in things like control and consent, giving parent the ability to give granular permissions, invite individual team members. Through that, we're also able to ensure that everybody on the platform that joins a child's team can have complete peace of mind that they could not be doing what they're able to do without the parent's permission, and that the parent has consented and applied their minds. And we're able to place the child at the center, to create this living profile of the child where people can monitor and follow the child, leading to improved communication, connection, and success. What's interesting here is, with the advent of modern health tech, let me call it that, everything nowadays, you can't have a discussion without the use of the words or the letters AI or artificial intelligence. It seems to be pervasive, and nobody seems to talk about any technology product without first talking about AI. What's been interesting for us is we haven't deployed AI yet, although we have seen that there are potentially many, many benefits of using AI. Why haven't we done it yet? That's because we have found, since we've gone live, we have found parents to be really concerned about the use of AI and what is being done with their children's information. And over time, what we're starting to see, as AI has become more commonplace and people have become more comfortable with it, we're seeing that parents perhaps are starting to become more comfortable with AI, because there is the ability, done properly, with care, with the necessary governance, with the necessary controls, with the necessary security, to be able to deploy AI and use it in a way that is privacy-centric, respects the child's rights, protects the information, and still deliver really valuable support to the families. So, for example, the ability to provide summaries of reports, or when a parent is going to go see a new therapist or professional, the ability to, of course, many of these children will have multiple reports over many years, to assimilate all that information into a summarized version that can be provided to the next doctor or teacher and the like. And so, while it certainly is on our roadmap and we see the potential, definitely see the potential advantages for it, at Dalza, we're being very careful about how we do it before we do it, because we want to make sure that the families we support are completely comfortable with it and are able to make informed decisions about it. We've been fortunate, and this is the power of health tech, is that health tech isn't just used, as you would have seen throughout this discussion, in a health context. It can be used in any environment, in schools, through associations and the like. And we are really grateful to have support of many organizations. And what we're able to do is, whether it's therapy centers, schools, ASBLs, and the like, we are able to build through this health tech we've created, this network of networks in the neurodivergence community, and we're able to connect people that were never connected before. And in addition, and this once again is the power of health tech, is that we are able to innovate with the objective of delivering social impact. And so we were proud as Dalza to have been awarded the Global Champion in 2025 by the World Summit Awards, which is a UN-backed competition. We were representing and nominated by Luxembourg to represent Luxembourg amongst more than 100 countries, 900 entries. And we're awarded Global Champion for our innovation and impact in learning and education. And the impact of our product has been tremendous. We're receiving fantastic school and professional feedback, fantastic parental feedback. Importantly, we're seeing these themes, and this is what I had to, when we speak of parents, I've had to be reminded as well. We speak of, and in founding Dalza, my focus has been on how do we better support our neurodivergent children through health tech. What has actually come through in our journeys, we've realized, is that we're also solving for and addressing parental well-being and giving parents peace of mind, taking the mental load off, or what I like to call the neuro load off, and placing them in control. And the research shows that if we're able to improve parental well-being, this has a direct impact on the child's well-being and a direct impact on positive outcomes. And so through the use of this health tech and through Dalza, we're able to plot a roadmap that is able to support these neurodivergent children and their families throughout their lives. And so what we've created through Dalza, our health tech and ed tech product, is just the start of it. Where do we want to go? Not only will we be able to support in schooling, we're able through health tech to deliver online assessments, therapy and health, provide family support. And as children progress and get older, we're able to provide career guidance and job search assistance, enable them with financial education and management, housing and social integration, developing relationships and community, and the like. The list and the potential using health tech and using the technology that's available today has created this pathway for Dalza and for the families we support that would not otherwise have been available before. And so we're excited about what the technology offers us and offers the family and children and communities that we work with. And so on that note, I would encourage you to join us in transforming neurodivergent support together. Please sign up, recommend, use Dalza. Also, give us any ideas, thoughts, needs, and the like, because we're always looking to improve Dalza for the families we support. So let's transform neurodivergent support together. And I wish you a fantastic rest of Neurodiversity Pride Week, and I hope you engage in many of the other activities. Thank you very much for your attention and support.